Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new Review My Review series. Sorry it's been a little while since I've done my last one. I've been really busy with getting the stream up and running, but let's get rolling with it. So today I'm taking a look at Jurassic World Evolution, which is a really cool freaking game. I've been waiting for this for ages, but as I'm going to highlight, there's some good and there's some bad that comes with this game. It is by Frontier Developments, both as developer and publisher. They're the guys behind things like Planet Coaster, for example. Jurassic World Evolution released on the 12th of June 2018 and is available for PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It is a building simulation management strategy game. It is exclusively a single player mode only and is rated PEGI 16. So as I've said before, I've been highly anticipating this title for quite a long time now. Rewatched the films, had the theme tune running through my head, and oh my gosh, yes, the wait has been over and I just wanted to get all dug into this because it's been such a long wait. So this part management game by Frontier Developments was released at a time with the film Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which came out in cinemas on the 22nd of June this year. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is the latest in the Beloved Jurassic Park series, which started with a book by Michael Crichton and was then moved into being a film by the same name in 1993 and directed by Steven Spielberg. Jurassic World Evolution puts the player firmly in the command of the parks of each of the islands that are part of the Las Cinco Archipelago, Isla Mantinceros, Isla Muerta, Isla Tucano, Pena, Sorna and Nubla. Each of the islands feature their own challenges due to geographical differences and other factors thematic to the series. Players must also balance out pleasing certain divisions that act like factions. These require your loyalty and assistance in ensuring the future of the park, but they want to develop it in lines with their own interests. Whilst pleasing the factions, the player also has to deal with these pesky dino breakouts, which, as Dr. Ian Malcolm says, life finds a way. So let's kick it off with visuals, sound and the use of the Jurassic Park IP. All in all, it makes a fantastic use of the source material. The game is visually stunning, crisp, the textures are particularly good, and the models for each dinosaur are amazing. It really draws you in and immerses you in the world of Jurassic Park, and its phenomenal soundtrack is just plucked straight from the films and just gets me so absorbed every time. Overall, the game makes good use of the IP, it keeps it thematically consistent with both the films and the books, and it is important to note that many of the mainstay characters of the series have their voice actors plucked straight from the film to actually perform those characters. There are, however, unfortunately a few notable omissions, which is a real shame, but all in all pretty good all round. Moving on, dinosaurs and exhibits, and this is something you're going to see me talk about for a long time because this is particularly crucial to the experience, but I promise just worth hanging in there with me. The game features an excellent variety of dinosaurs. There's 42 in total, with an extra DLC that's since been added, which has another 6 which tie in with the Fallen Kingdom and the film itself. There is more plans for more dinos, but nothing announced as of yet. All in all, dinos feel pretty varied in their behaviour and their ability to keep compliant and contained, particularly the hybrid dinosaurs, of which there's only 2 available at the moment, but I hope they do have more, the current ones being the Indominus Rex and the Indoraptor from the films. Interactions between the different species are really well done, but interspecies interaction is a little bit shallower, unfortunately. Of note is also that something that bugged me is the dinos are not proportionate in size to each other per the fossil record, which I know is just a minor gripe, but it's just something that really annoyed me. I do understand that omissions like feather features and stupid things like that Dillo frill head thing that's part of the films, but yeah, please at least get the dinos proportionate. That would make life so much better. I just felt really underwhelmed by the size of certain creatures when I knew they should be so much bigger. All in all, creature animations are well done. They are, however, highly overused across multiple species in the games. I understand this is a little bit of a corner-cutting exercise. Each creature would have highly benefited from having additional animation sets. It is important to note that there are some creatures like the Indominus Rex, for example, that do have their own unique animation sets. A few hours playing into the game though, it's become noticeable, particularly dinos like the Ceratosaur do not have those unique sets, and as you get further and further into the game and you unlock more and more of the dinos, this just become increasingly apparent. There is one thing to note, though, that even with creatures like the Indominus Rex, for example, having its own unique sets, and the Indoraptor even for that matter, there isn't always unique combat kill combinations for conflict between specific species when interacting with that particular dino, which really annoyed me. I would have really loved to have had the Indoraptor and Indominus Rex have a custom kill set just for them, for example. This wasn't the case, unfortunately, and another consequence, unfortunately, of reused animations and things not being adjusted is that more often than not, kill bites don't line up, so it actually looks like the dino's munching the grass and plucking meat out of the middle of nowhere, instead of actually making contact with the dino's neck or going in for an actual body part, which is, yeah, it just pulls you out of the whole experience. It's so frustrating. On the topic of combat, overall it does look really impressive and it is pretty polished overall. It does, again, suffer from the lack of animations, and increased variety would have made combat so more unpredictable. You can see the gauges and you can see how things are going to pan out before they finish, unfortunately, just due to the situation that's been created by this. There's also, I noticed some uncharacteristic behaviour which makes no sense under certain conditions. With certain dinosaur fights, for example, it's quite common for them to look away or break mid-fight and turn their back on the enemy when it would clearly not be wise to do so. So it just seems really, really illogical from if I was in that situation kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't be turning my back on something when I'm very vulnerable when I'm about to get my backside munched. But anyway, it's also disappointing that outside of the dinosaur interactions, the dinosaurs don't actually interact with the visitors outside of eating them occasionally, and they ignore park staff. They do not attempt to overturn vehicles if they get irritated or wound up. It would have been really nice to see dinos stomping down trees, destroying the exhibits, messing up feeders, just anything other than just bashing their skulls on the fence or picking a fight with another dino when they're annoyed. It just seemed a bit bland. On the topic as well, tying in with dinos and just the exhibit destruction and so on and so forth, exhibits really are oversimplified and basic in Jurassic World Evolution. The entire focus of exhibits revolves around having a tiny little pond of water and then balancing the rest out between a bit of grassland and forest. It is not made clear by the game at any point whether this is based on the entire exhibit or just a fixed amount of area around the dinosaur, depending on where it's roamed to within the exhibit. I found many other Steam players on the forums were also experiencing the same confusion, but having experimented for many hours, it would appear it is proxy based, which is annoying, but I can see why they may have done that. I was disappointed the game doesn't punish the player as well for putting dinos in exhibits that are clearly way too small. The space factor as a requirement to keep them all happy just seems really obvious as an inclusion, and this should be particularly impactful on dinosaurs that are larger and ones that migrate or live in large packs. An example of this is I had a very small exhibit and I had almost every single type of Triceratops-like creature within it, and of course these commonly are very social animals, so I had 3 to 4 of each generally. They were perfectly happy with each other, regardless of the fact it was clearly too cramped and they didn't have enough space to wander around, properly. So there is no reason they should have coexisted quite, as happily as they did in that scenario, which annoyed me. When it comes to looking into exhibits and just the fence availability, lacks options really. There's a reasonable base level of stuff, but I would have loved to have had alternate viewing platforms rather than the 2 the game provides. I would have particularly liked ones that could have provided alternative viewing interactions with the dinosaurs, such as in one of the films there was a log. I would have loved to have seen something like that, maybe, that goes into the exhibit, and then you could have something underneath it, or the guest could trigger something that would impact on the way the dinosaur behaved. Another idea I had was perhaps viewing areas, but you had paid experiences within those viewing areas, so they'd come at a premium to buy, but you could sell more goodies, or they could get like a paid photo thing or something, you know, a bit like on Roller Coaster Rides, for example. So guests could have their photo taken, get exhibit specific toys maybe, and then that would help me funnel guests towards specific areas that I wanted them to go to and open up more monetization opportunities for the park. This just is non-existent. When it comes to exhibits, the lack of customization is particularly disgusting. The player has very basic brush tools, and you can raise and lower the land, and that's about it. I would have loved to have had different environment types. There are dinosaurs in the game that clearly would suit a desert, a swamp, so on and so forth, and that just does not exist. It leaves the exhibits really homogenized and lacking in character, and that was extremely frustrating. Again, particularly with the fact I know certain dinosaurs would not live in this weird grassland, foresty kind of environment, so it was bizarre seeing them in that situation. I would have loved to have been able to also place objects within the exhibit to improve the ratings and make the environment more dramatic, and also, again, potentially impact on the way the dino behaved. Exhibit choice and customization is just shallow. The game would have benefited from something like exhibit management in Zoo Tycoon, which I think was particularly admirable at the time. It gave players so much choice and decision-making power when it came to meeting creatures' needs, how to keep them contained, and how to make things pretty or different. You know, I could have multiple line enclosures, and they could all be very drastically different and serve the animals' needs in different ways. I was hoping Jurassic World would hit that kind of level when it came to exhibit customization, but they've fallen massively short. Let's get away from dinosaurs and exhibits after my little rant, and let's get into islands and gameplay. And I have to say, I am very pleased with the islands. Each is very distinct visually, and thematically they've used really clever use of time of day, landscape, weather, and tied the challenges into these, so each feels very, very different when you take them on. I understand why they haven't included a true day-night cycle in the game. I know this annoys some players, but the design decision between this makes a lot of sense, part of it being to aid in creating that unique atmosphere and more foreboding situation where needed. Lighting and weather effects keep the game fresh on each island and keep the experience as a whole after many hours from becoming stale. I was disappointed the final island is sandbox only. I would have really appreciated the inclusion of the option to turn it into a standard play mode, much like you playing the rest of the islands, so you could experience financially balancing the island and so on and so forth, and even having to wrestle with the departments. And unfortunately they don't allow this. I really enjoyed the factions though, and I did enjoy the unlocks that are associated with them. It gave me something to work towards on each island. However, I found that different departments would offer the same missions that other departments did at various points in the game. This seemed really counterintuitive, and in some rare cases they actually overlapped, where I had 2 or 3 departments all pretty much on board with the same thing. Doing a mission for one faction raises your rep, but it will also deplete reputation with the other, which in turn leads to neglecting that faction, and they could in theory throw their toys out the pram and sabotage you in a really bad toddler's attempt to get your attention, with horrific consequences, people dying and apex predators getting loose and so on and so forth. But you know, safety isn't that important, especially when the security department is the one throwing the hissy fit, opening all the gates and complaining they're not getting enough attention, and caused the very problem they complained about in the first place, which hadn't happened up until that point in the park's history, until they went out of their way to cause it. But you know. So yeah, no thanks security team. I'm quite happy over here with the science department making things you are letting loose for the sake of it. However, on a positive note, factions do contribute nuggets of story and background as to how the parks operate and the conflicts ongoing between individuals. The lack of detail that it could have gone into, though, is a bit of annoying. It feels like the tip of the iceberg of what could have been and should have been further embellished. Islands are restrictive in space, but this lends to players being forced to make hard choices and utilise the space to its absolute maximum and plan ahead. The lack of space also challenges players who are a bit more advanced, to take on the task of mixed exhibits. What I mean by this is getting species that get along with each other peacefully and balancing out the environment to match these. To get around the islands being restrictive and reward the players who do go out of their way to achieve high ratings on the islands. And, of course, this task of mixed exhibits. It would have been amazing if they could have given the option for, say, a player getting 4 or 5 stars to maybe open up some more of the island outside of the standard border. Just give me a little nugget of something to work towards even further. On a little side note, the game does offer various skins for vehicles within the game, particularly the ACU helicopters and the Jeeps. I was really pleased to see that the classic Jeep skins, among others, are included by default. The method, however, to unlock these skins is very obscure and not something you're likely to do during standard gameplay, and therefore something you're more specifically going to need to target once you're aware of it. The game offers Zippo information on how to get these without looking online, which seemed a tad unfair. I would have loved a little subtle hint on what to do from the voiceover or something in the menus, some sort of Easter egg. That would have been really, really helpful. Moving on to glitches and technical issues. The game is generally glitch-free. I did have a couple of really weird experiences, especially with shop placement and a few vehicle physics. In the case of shops, and this is something that happened repeatedly and all the time, and it was really bloody annoying, regardless of if I set the price to 0 for an item, and regardless of location, and so on and so forth, I could not sell any products. I had to resort to deleting and replacing the building over and over again on the same spot, and eventually it would just work fine. Another thing I know about shops is they added a patch not too far back, and it introduced an issue where shop management styles do not function at all. They are completely broken. Now, that may have been fixed by now, I'm not sure, but every time I go to set the shop management style, as soon as you leave the menu, it doesn't save it. It reverts back to the default automatically. But yeah, keeping my fingers crossed they'll fix this and address it ASAP. As noted in the dinosaur section of this review, it's important to note that animations do not line up properly. So, I suppose you could label it a technical issue, you know, but yeah, they're not eating from corpses correctly after combat, and they're not always lining up when it comes to going for the throat kill and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's something they really should sort out, but whether they will or not, I don't know. Now, after that little quick section, let's move on to the guests and staff. All in all, guests and staff are among the biggest disappointment in the game. Guests frequently get stuck in exhibits, and they don't exhibit the brain power to understand that an open gate is an easy escape. You are not provided with the option to launch rescue missions, which is a bit of a missed opportunity, you know, to save the idiots. But, yeah, it lands you in a situation where you're going to constantly get bombarded with the "dinosaur is a threat to guests" message alert over and over and over until the silly morons are eaten. Outside of the issues of guests being eaten and getting stuck, they really do not feel alive. They are empty husks. Guests have limited behaviour, and as a consequence of this, they are very restricted in what they can do, how they respond, and just overall their animations. Again, they could benefit with more variety. Visibly, the guests comprise of very few clothing, hair, and facial options. I was disappointed to find out that you cannot get to know your guests either. There is no way to learn more about their needs, see their thoughts. Some kind of system a bit like Zoo Tycoon or Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 would have been really, really nice. All the feedback and interaction I was hoping for with my guests didn't exist, and as a consequence, I gave 0 craps whether they died or not. When I looked at the guests, all I saw was robots beeping and booping their way around determined paths with 0 care for what they were actually going about doing. Staff essentially suffer from the same issue. Without names or personality, I really didn't give a crap if a T.rex chomped up a few scientists for dinner. It wasn't like it was going to stop me or hinder me from my ongoing research project, unlike the films, which suggests that, you know, the raptor training project being very, very heavily tied to a lead character is particularly important to the plot. Again, this seems like a really annoying missed opportunity for them to inject a little personality into the people that are running your park. So, genetics, research, and dig sites. Overall, genetics, research, and dig sites are good, but dig sites specifically are a major letdown. The genetic modification system is fun, it's well laid out, and it's engaging. However, it was lacking when it came to implications that it had on your dinosaur's behaviour, and it only really influenced the star rating of the dinosaur that's being created. The game does offer one genetic modification for aggression, which leads to the dinosaur being more prone to attack others and more likely to try and escape. More implications like the one described would have been really nice. It would have really shaken up the game. It would have forced me to take extra security measures, research additional technology, and also potentially mean the game could offer more types of buildings, fences, building modifications even, to negate the risk involved with these genetically modified dinosaurs. Like with genetics, the research options and path are well defined and very clear. I felt rewarded when I obtained something after a research project, but I would have appreciated more options and variety, particularly later into the game. As much as I am reasonably happy with genetics and research, I cannot say the same for dig sites. Dig sites as a mechanism are lacking but functional. The main purpose they serve is to provide a way for you to get the genetic material to then process and improve the viability and authenticity of your dinosaurs. This is in itself a good foundation, but it needs expanding on as it rapidly becomes tedious to do. Also of note is each dig site is labelled with all of the dinosaurs that it has straight away. They don't actually match the reality of where they're found in the real world. I know this is not a major problem, but it was just a minor nuisance for someone like myself who really loves dinosaurs and historical accuracy. It would have been nice to see this reflected a little bit better. The process of getting fossils essentially amounts to open a menu, look at the map, find the dino you want, and click and wait. All in all, lazy mobile gaming level of mechanics. I would have far rather been more involved in excavations. I would have really liked it if they'd have given me the option to hire individuals whose stats impacted on the potential success of the dig, and perhaps maybe the availability of staff to hire be affected on the park's rating, therefore incentive to improve your park rating to get better dig staff. I would have also made it not so obvious which dig sites had which fossils in them, maybe hint but not blatantly list straight away. Perhaps maybe tie this into research, which if you invest in over time will give you more hints or indications as to where dinosaurs are specifically. I would have liked the possibility of sabotage of the excavations, maybe accidents happening on transporting the resulting fossils back to base, which makes them less viable for doing research on. Another consideration would have also been, what about the possibility of, rather than just selling off the excess fossils, maybe displaying them in the park, maybe as lovely buildings or as part of statues or something just to boost ratings and maybe even the education of guests, which could lead to extra funding for the park. Again, another missed opportunity. In conclusion, Jurassic World is an amazing experience from the same developers behind awesome titles like Planet Coaster. Frontier Developments has made good execution of this game that I've been highly anticipating. However, it really is obvious that some corners have been cut. The world of Jurassic Park and its IP has been used really well, and I'm particularly happy with the voice acting, visuals and the audio, which drew me into the world and into my role as the park manager across each of the islands. The game has a good variety of dinosaurs available on release, with the free DLC already available, adding a few extras into the mix. Although dinosaurs generally look excellent, they are lacking in some areas of interaction, and particularly of note is the animations that don't line up correctly and are far too predictable. This is one of the biggest letdowns from the entire game, but it didn't take me out of the experience in its entirety. Next to animations falling short, however, the lack of exhibit customization left me very, very disappointed. It is far too oversimplified and needs a lot of work. Genetic modifications are very good, but could benefit from having greater impact on behaviour and interactions. Dig sites are so disappointing. As I've said before, it amounts to mobile gaming mechanics. I want to be more involved. Please give me the choice for this. It would have made it far more interesting and engaging. The game doesn't have many bugs, but ones like shop placement not working properly and being unable to sell products from these buildings is frustrating over time. It does grind on you after quite a few hours of the game. As I've said before, hopefully this will get rectified. Story is lacking in depth. I would have expected more, but it is executed well, what is available in the game. Guests are husks, lack depth, and are homogenised beyond belief, and the lack of feedback to the player when compared to games like Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and Zoo Tycoon is highly disappointing. Again, comparing to Zoo Tycoon, the exhibits fall short on the same kind of level. please give me more options. I desperately want this. This will fix a major gripe I have with the game, and would have significantly improved its score as far as this review goes. Regardless of its faults though, the game is still an awesome experience and a great way to engage with the Jurassic Park IP outside of the films. A good opportunity for anybody new to Jurassic Park, but also to someone who's already a fan like myself. I've already put many hours into this game, and I'm sure I will continue to do so over the coming months. I want to get everything unlocked, and I want to mess around with the sandbox bit that much more. However, I do yearn for more maps, scenarios, and so on and so forth, which would improve the longevity of the game. Again, going back to Zoo Tycoon, I want that. I really want those options. Consequently, for this all-round pretty decent experience with a few flaws and some major glaring omissions, I'm going to give this 70 out of 100. If a few glaring omissions are addressed, then I can see this getting into the 80s, even potentially mid-90s, but I just can't justify that in this current state. Thanks for listening and watching, guys. I do really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more of this kind of content, and let me know what you think in the comments. I really love Jurassic Park, so it's extremely disappointing this hasn't lived up to my expectation. However, I may revisit this in a year or two's time, and we can maybe see what extra content has done to it when the devs have had a little bit of a chance to readdress a few things. I've got my fingers crossed for this one so bad. I really want this to live up to my expectation. I'm hoping, given the devs' history, they will. They've done an amazing job on Planet Coaster, so fingers crossed. Anyway, till next time, guys. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.